Rumor is Lucci's got toe beans. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Oh, God, my face.
This is for dark justice.
Bad kitty. Squirt bottle.
It's season 4 of King of the What Now. Before the world government, we ain't gonna bow. We're gonna rescue Rob and unite the crew. We're not gonna stop till our mission is through. Spanum's a dick, yeah, you know it's true. We wanna punch his face till he's black and blue. These government agents think they're justice, but regarding their tactics, I'm rather disgusted. The Straw Hats are pumped up and fists are flying. There's a hairy kaiju and lightning striking. Hearts burning hot in passionate flames. With phantom blades the giraffe is slain. Luffy is dashing, his skin's all red. Don't get in the way or you'll end up dead. The Straw Hats, yeah, they're on the attack. So now Soga King, burn down that flag!
Hello, fellow adventurers of the Grand Line, and welcome to episode 86 of King of the What Now, your one and only source for One Piece news, other than all of those other places where you can get One Piece news.
Do we ever talk about news?
No, I don't think so. I think we talk about, like, when movies are coming out, so, I mean, that kind of counts, right?
I guess.
But anyways, so this is episode 86. We're a One Piece podcast. We are discussing the anime from the very beginning. As always, I'm your host, Joel, longtime fan, and also I'm here to deliver a badass speech that gets the hero back on his feet, ready for round 3, the final round. It doesn't matter what round number it is.
He needs his afro and his boxing gloves because he is going for it.
Absolutely. He's putting on the straw hat, he's lighting the cigarette, he's putting on the bandana and cracking his knuckles.
There we go. I'm Kat. I'm the ghost of the show, and I am just, like a 13-year-old child who's here to make some vague threats and then kill a bunch of people.
Including people who were ostensibly on your side.
Yeah, but they were weak.
They were weak, so just get rid of them.
That's justice.
That's dark justice. And really quickly, before we get into the chatting with the hosts, if you're calling your own philosophy dark justice, you might have a problem. Like, that might be a sign that something's wrong with you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. We can talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into chatting with the hosts. And Kat, why don't you lead us off with your thoughts on Ressha Sentai?
I still love it so much. We've talked about it a couple of times, I think, in chatting with the hosts, at least once, probably. But we've gotten a lot further into it. I think we're on episode, 30-something, babe?
28, I think, something like that. We have just under 20 episodes left to go, and there's 47 total. So.
Right, and somebody we follow on Twitter posted that episode 32 and beyond was what made this their favorite season of Sentai. So I'm very excited. This show does a thing where their B-plot, to kind of cut away from the drama a little bit, is like a soap opera about the bad guys, and I love it. I love it so much. We found out there was like a Game of Thrones thing going on, and it's just very good.
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. I believe that a lot of people our age probably were introduced to Power Rangers as a kid, and I loved that show as a kid, but, as I started to get older, I'm like, wow, this is kind of goofy and weird and wacky, and it's part high school drama, part fighting monsters, but, if you listen to our Grand episode, or if you know anything about Tokusatsu, the Americanized version kind of took the actual Super Sentai, the Power Rangers, the transforming people, and interspliced it with American actors, because they thought that the American audience wouldn't like, subtitles for the Japanese actors. So what ends up happening if you watch the original without the American stuff cut in is it's a lot more cohesive of a story. It's still very silly, but it's silly in a great way. So every season you have, your different colored rangers. This season we currently have, spoiler alert, 6. There's a red, a pink, a yellow, a green, a blue, and an orange. But the first 5 members of the team can switch colors at any given point in time, and so they'll just be in the middle of a battle and they'll be like, hey, let's switch colors, and they'll be like, red transferred to blue. And so now who usually has a rail sword, now he has a blaster. And the guy who normally has a blaster now has a rail sword and that sort of thing. And so it's a lot of fun. It's pretty good. I'm liking it a lot better than I kind of thought that I would.
Yeah, and the thing I like about it versus, say, American Power Rangers, or we've only watched one season of Kamen Rider, but the thing I like about it more than Kamen Rider is there's no like everyday real life stuff, really. Like, they're on a train, they go from city to city, they fight the monsters in the city, and that's it. And that's all I really wanted from this, plus my Game of Thrones evil people soap opera.
Which is surprisingly gripping. Like, at first you're just like, okay, there's this weird, like, girl monster who's in love with this guy monster, but then you get to the point where, like, their feelings for each other actually impact the plot to the point where they're making decisions in order to help protect this other person that they've had a crush on, and it's actually more affecting than, again, like, this is just the sort of show where if you go into it really cynical and you're looking for all of the reasons it doesn't make sense, you're not gonna have a good time. But if you kind of just let it happen to you, I think is the phrase Grant used, no, it's very good. And also, the bad guy has gotten this transformation where it's not a Power Ranger transformation, but he does get, like, armor, and that's a good look for him. He's pretty menacing.
Yeah, he turns into, like, Metal Dark Lord. They didn't give him an official title, but he literally looks like a Kingdom Hearts villain. Like, he's got wings on his back that form into hearts, and his hair is all spiky and made of metal. It's great. I really love this season. I'm curious to watch the next season of Sentai on my list and see how it measures up.
Yeah, I do think that, like you said, there's no real life drama, really. It's mostly they're on a train, they go from one place to another, but I think that might be the way this season is set up. I don't know if every Super Sentai will have that, but we'll find out. Which one are you eyeing next?
Next, I want to watch Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger,
okay,
which is the only season of Sentai that has 2 Sentai teams.
Okay.
And it's about a team of gentlemen thieves fighting a team of police-themed Power Rangers, and both of them are fighting aliens.
That's wonderful. You get the 3-way battles, and maybe sometimes they team up, maybe sometimes they get in each other's way. That's pretty great. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up for Ressha Sentai. Is that the official title of it?
Ressha Sentai ToQger.
Okay, perfect.
I mentioned Kamen Rider, which you have been watching. Do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, I'm only like 3 or 4 episodes into... Is it Kamen Rider...
Ex Aid.
Ex Aid, okay. Yeah, I wanted to say Build. That's one that shows up in my timeline a lot. That's not the one I'm watching. It's pretty good, but I think the thing that initially drew me in is I saw some screenshots of... So this whole season centers around video games, and so you'll have, like, a guy hitting an enemy with a hammer, and you'll see, like, combo in big, flashy, splash text. And I really like that visual aspect of it, but the story is not quite what I was hoping for. But again, I'm only like 4 episodes in. I only got to the part where they've introduced all 4 Kamen Riders for the season. But there is a lot of, like you said, real world drama of, like, this character is trying to teach his patient how to feel happy again. And I kind of like that, but it takes away from the monster stuff. And so I'm making my way through it. I'm going to try to get through the entire season and try not to be too critical of it, but I am certainly finding myself drawn to ToQger more frequently.
Yeah, if you only live your life based on our recommendations, which, like, why wouldn't you? No, I'm not that arrogant, but if you're going to watch something based on our recommendations, I would definitely encourage you to start with ToQger and then maybe try Ex Aid, because I definitely lean much harder toward ToQger. I love it so much. There are trains and there's a police train and it's just a gun.
And
it's a gun.
They had an episode too where they do their pose as they transform, and then the transformation wears off, and they later find out that for reasons that they can only transform for like 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and they're like, why do we waste so much time posing? So they are aware that they're posing. I always thought that was like a meta thing or like for the audience, but no, they're aware of the silly poses that they're doing.
It's beautiful. And I think that kind of wraps up chatting with the host. What else have we been doing?
Absolutely. We finished the middle book in the Dark Materials Trilogy, so that would be The Subtle Knife. Is that the one the one's called? So we've met Will. Hooray! Will's a guy. He lost some fingers. No, I will touch on, if you haven't read the His Dark Materials Trilogy, I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Spoilers ahead if you haven't read the second book, though. But the scene where Lee Scoresby died was probably the most affecting scene from this trilogy so far. Like, there's a lot of little moments that are touching or sad or they get you angry, but that scene was specifically meant to make you feel for this character who sacrificed himself, and wow, it was really good, and it was really well written. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it, but I can appreciate the weight of the moment. And we're also listening to the audiobook, and I think that they did an excellent job with Lee Scoresby and Hester is his familiar, or his demon. It was just a really good scene. I would recommend The Subtle Knife just for that part specifically.
It was that trope where the old fighter pushes himself to overcome, this big obstacle that's standing in the way of the heroes. And then as they're dying, they ask, the heroes or whoever, did I do it? Did we win? And they're like, yeah, you win, buddy. And then they die. But he was talking to his own soul.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't want to be apart from you. I'm going to get emotional talking about it. It's a very good scene. I was almost on the verge of crying before it even happened because I knew it was coming because I reread these books every year. And I really appreciated the voice acting for it. The Golden Compass series, the His Dark Materials series, is interesting because there has yet to be an adaptation, movie or TV, that I've been satisfied with. And I feel like this audiobook has gotten the closest to, perfect casting.
I see what you're saying. I was about to say, well, that's because it didn't cut out anything. It didn't have to condense it into a single season or a single movie or whatever. But at the same time, I do agree that they've gotten some pretty good voice acting. I really like Yorick Bernisson's, yes, I am the polar bear. Yes,
he's like a Russian Batman.
He kind of is.
I have an armor because I am a bear. I'm not doing a good job because I'm not a voice actor, but no, the voice acting in these audiobooks is really good. They're completely voice acted as opposed to some other audiobooks. So Philip Pullman does the narration, which I always love it when authors get to read their own audiobooks. But they have a different voice actor for each of the characters. And some of them are a little but most of them are very good. They got Mrs. Coulter spot on. They got Lee Scoresby spot on. So I would recommend it. I liked these audiobooks. And now we're on to the Amber Spyglass, which takes a little bit different a turn. I think it goes much deeper into the metaphysics.
Yeah, I think we'll probably reserve talking about that one too much until next episode when we'll probably have finished it, and then we can talk about the series as a whole. But it's definitely different. It suffers from the Harry Potter and Hunger Games problem, which in my eyes, those series had a consistent tone up until the last book, and then it kind of veered heavily. It's the same characters. It has to do with the same themes, but it just feels different. And I'd say that the last Harry Potter book, the last Hunger Games book, and the last His Dark Materials books all feel a little bit different than the books that preceded them.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, and I'll stick to The Subtle Knife because we're going to discuss the Amber Spyglass after we finish it. But one of my main critiques of the show that they are doing on BBC is that they kind of watered down a lot of the characters, especially the female characters. They made them seem a lot weaker and a lot more emotional. And our main character, Lyra, was very strong and very self-contained through the first book. And then the second book happens, and now Will is the main character. And so it kind of feels like she goes from being this really interesting character on her own to only existing to support this other person. And everything she does outside of his goals is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the story is about them working together and they have a shared, it's kind of like the Red String of Fate thing that you see a lot in Japanese media. But at the same time, she does feel like a different character in the second book compared to the first. She seems a lot more kind of weak, I guess.
Timid.
I'm scared and I don't want to do this thing. Whereas in the first book, it seemed like she would do anything no matter how scared she felt. But in this one, she's she needs a push from an external character to help her be motivated. And again, it makes sense. She's going through a lot. There's the weight of the world is on her shoulders. But at the same time, you can notice a difference if you read them back to back and you compare every action between the two. Really quickly, I'm not going to go too into it, but Netflix has, in America at least, has JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2, Battle Tendency. And I've heard that some people don't like this season, and I have no idea what substances those people are taking, because this is my favorite season, my favorite part of JoJo's, and Joeseph has so much energy. If you have not seen JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you kind of sort of need to see part 1, but not really. Just skip to part 2. It's so good. I love it so much.
Well, and part 2 is so much more self-contained compared to every other season. No concepts from the first season really come back except for Hamon, and they explain that plenty. And none of the villains are the same as in season 1 or in later seasons. And so it's very much like you could watch just this season and be done. Like you don't have to watch anything else. My favorite season is Diamond is Unbreakable.
Part 4.
Yep, but Battle Tendency is a very close second. I love Joeseph Joestar.
We're gonna do a bonus episode on JoJo's, or I'll do like a video essay on YouTube about JoJo's, but really quickly, the even numbers are my favorite and the odd numbers fall a little flat because I feel that the JoJo of each season is what defines that season. And Joeseph and Josuke are such interesting, full-of-life characters, whereas I feel that Jotaro and Giorno and Joeseph are a lot more one-dimensional. Or no, sorry, not Joseph. Jonathan are one-dimensional. And for that reason, I love Part 2. Part 2 has the, next you'll say, blah, 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 blah. And it's so good. Like, that's such a good meme.
Yes.
But, so really quick, yeah, just like I said, I'm not going to go into too many details, but Part 2 is my favorite. I'm rewatching it. It's great.
Would you recommend the sub or the dub?
So I'm currently watching the dub, and I believe the first time I watched the sub, and they are, to me, about the same. I know that some people probably don't like the over-the-top acting in the dub, but I think for some people that also makes the experience, so it really depends, like, how much of a JoJo head you are, because if you're in it for, like, the wackiness and the goofiness, the dub actually nails that pretty well.
The dub is extremely goofy, and that actually, when you pointed that out to me, it made me like it a lot better, because they do a lot of accents, and they're bad. They're ridiculous.
Yeah, some of the supporting characters aren't my favorite, but I think Joseph and Wamu are they're great so far.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing is I'm trying to learn how to do an art. I've talked about this on Twitter once or twice. Every once in a while I'll share one of it. But basically, I think it was the mangaka for Vinland Saga basically said, hey, if you want to be a good artist, just draw every day. It doesn't matter what you're drawing, but just be sure to do it every day and be sure to actually finish what you started. After a year, you'll be amazed at how well you're doing. So I'm trying not to limit myself to any one particular subject matter. I do a lot of Pokemon as warm-up sketches because they're usually very simple. They're very quick to do. But I'm also trying to draw from real life. I'm trying to draw from anime. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not just drawing, white dudes or cute girls every time. I'm trying to do a variety of, ages and body types and ethnicities and all that other stuff. And, maybe someday I can go to a con and display my art next to Kathryn's, and we'll probably have slightly different subject matter, but, maybe in 2 or 3 years you can look forward to seeing that.
I draw a lot of cute animals, and Joel draws a lot of cute girls, so together we can have, like, the full spectrum of cute things.
Absolutely. I think right now the one thing that I want to be able to draw are group shots of, say, like, the Straw Hats or the 7 Deadly Sins or that sort of thing. Or the other thing is that I have a lot of crossover ideas, and they're nothing like advanced. I'm not going to blow your mind with like, oh my god, did you realize that these 2 characters from different shows both have fire powers? But I would just love to be able to try and take that and bring it to life. So,
what is the one thing that you have in your head that you'd really like to draw that feels beyond your skills right now?
I want to draw a ballroom dance scene, like from, say, Beauty and the Beast, and I want the subject to be a dancing couple, and the man would have, like, the top hat and the cape, and he would just be, like, a Victorian gentleman, and then she would be in, like, a Victorian dress, and it would be a little seductive, like, they'd be in a dip, and she'd be blushing a little bit, and it looks like he's about to kiss her, except, plot twist, the guy is a anthropomorphized Umbreon, and she is a Sylveon.
That is beautiful.
Yes.
Is she a Sylveon or a Espeon?
No, she's a Sylveon.
Okay.
And then the background characters, like 1 or 2, might be like a humanized Flareon or a humanized Vaporeon or something like that. But I think that would look really good.
You've been very good at your practicing.
I've been sticking to it, man.
Yeah, so. You have. What was your Twitter that people could follow you at if they wanted to follow your
Joel
drawings?
Can't Draw. I might change that one day to Joel Can't Art, but at this point in time, it's Joel Can't Draw.
Okay. The one drawing I would like to do someday that feels beyond my skills right now, I've been wanting to do a watercolor painting of Victorian ladies sipping tea together, but plot twist, they have crow heads.
Absolutely. Yeah, you were saying that you do cute animals, so like naturally crow-headed Victorian England is like the next logical step if you have a certain niche or whatever.
Obviously. Lolita crows.
Oh man, I also really
Crowlita.
Okay, we are coining that term right here and now. We are copywriting it, and if you draw a Crowlita, you're gonna have to, give us a little bit of that moolah, or just a shout out on Instant Media,
Instant media.
You just put it in the oven, and it only takes 5 minutes. Instant Media.
Oh my god.
I do also like the monster girls that we came up with, where we are going to do Princess Peach and Daisy and Rosalina, and they're all going to be like horrifying in some way. And someday, once I have the drawing ability, I would love to collaborate with you on that, rather than me kind of being like, oh, you should draw Rosalina, but with like spikes.
Yeah, peek behind the curtain, folks. I started those drawings and I went, wow, these are bad, and then never finished them. So I agree. Someday that would be cool to finish.
Okay. And I think that wraps up Chatting with the Host. We now return to your regularly scheduled episode. All right, so we just finished watching 5 episodes of the anime. That was 305 through 309. And to get into that succinct summary, we get a little bit of a flashback with Rob Lucci, and we find out that at the age of 13, he was already a 6 powers master. He came to a hostage situation where some pirates had soldiers of a kingdom under guard, and Lucci purposely got captured so that he could kill them all, because that's what it means to have dark justice in your heart.
Yeah, first of all, they shouldn't have gotten captured in the first place. But second of all, if he kills all the hostages, then the pirates have nothing over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he then kills all of the pirates as well. We get all of the Straw Hats minus Robin and Luffy are in that underwater passage with Granny Kokoro and Chimney and Gonbei, and it looks like they're about to drown, but they're saved by a mysterious mermaid. Surprise plot twist, Kokoro was a mermaid all along, and she saved them, so that's great. The Straw Hats, minus Luffy, gather on the Bridge of Hesitation, and they are now being surrounded by the battleships, and it looks like they're going to have to fight to hold off 200 captains, people at the same level of Smoker, while Luffy finishes his fight. And then you also get Luffy versus Lucci. He's pushing himself to the limits, and he's running himself ragged. He's running out of strength, and eventually Luffy collapses on the ground. It looks like he's defeated, and Lucci's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna go kill your friends now. And Luffy's like, no, stop, even though I don't have the strength to stand up again. Please take my word for it that I could have kicked your ass. And Usopp shows up, and notice I said Usopp, not Soga King. He takes off the mask, and he gives this big speech, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but he inspires Luffy to get back up and continue fighting, and Luffy unleashes his strongest attack to date, which is Gum Gum Jet Gatling, and just destroys Lucci. Someone on the intercom is like, Lucci is dead, which I don't know if I'd believe that even if I didn't have foreknowledge, but, he's definitely defeated. Hattori the pigeon comes and, lands, is like, are you dead?
To be clear, the pigeon does not talk. He just lands.
But, you can tell in his pigeon expression. And that's about it. That wraps it up. They have not yet gotten off of Eni's lobby, but it looks like all of the major CP9 members have been defeated.
Yeah. One quick note that we'll discuss in further detail. As Zoro is holding off the Marines, one of his swords gets destroyed.
Yep.
So
Yubashiri.
Yeah.
Which is apparently the name of the sword.
There are people who can tell Zoro's swords apart, and they know what their names are, and they know what makes each sword special. I can't, and I never will, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think of these episodes?
There was a lot in these episodes, and there was a lot of flashbacks, which in a lot of places I did not like, but there were some that were very effective. Oh, I guess I didn't mention that. So also Polly and Galley Law and the 2 giants, Oimo and Kashi, and Sodom and Gomorrah, they managed to get to the entrance, I guess, of Eni's lobby. But there's 3 battleships there that are just like, whoa, look at those pirates. We're going to have to kill them. And you see the cannon fire go off, and you see one of the giants' helmets on the ground, and it's smoking. So we're led to believe that they're dead, and they even announce on the intercom, yes, 60 people were just blown to smithereens because Marines are so awesome. And it shows all of the Straw Hats having memories of the different times they interacted with, like, Zanbai or Polly or Yokozuna, but I don't think they're dead. I don't know how they escape. I don't remember, but this isn't the sort of show that kills off characters.
If we find out they are alive, we'll have to talk about that more
when it happens.
When that happens. I really liked a lot of different pieces of these episodes. Love the reveal that Kokoro was a mermaid. That was absolutely fantastic. And I think I remember when Tom and Kokoro were introduced during Frankie's flashbacks, I think I remember one of us asking, how did a human come to marry a fishman?
Yes.
Well, a human didn't marry a fishman. An ice fish mermaid married a fishman. And we got some great world building. Apparently, when mermaids turn 30, their tails split in two and they can walk on dry land.
Sure, why not?
I think that's cool. It led me to ask, though, is Chimney her biological grandchild? Because they have the same green hair, but Chimney is very clearly not a mermaid and not a fishman.
You know, I agree with that assessment. I think she just got adopted, and I think maybe she either coincidentally has the same hair, or maybe she dyes her hair. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting twist. I do also love where Chimney was like, oh, I was wondering why you had scales and fins, and Frankie's like, how many clues did you need?
I like that we, as the audience, have never seen her scales. Like, she looks like a normal person, but maybe it's under her jacket or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's her lower back, a place where the camera dare not zoom.
I also, of course, really liked Usopp's speech. I like that Luffy declared that he was never going to fall again until he defeated Lucci, and then you can see him stumbling, but he stops himself from falling and he wins. That's really good. I love Robin in these episodes. Robin was willing to die, and she was like holding herself back from participating in the fight or helping the Straw Hats, and then now she's finally accepted that these are her friends and that they're fighting for her, and as Nami's fighting, she joins Nami and she says, I'm part of your crew now, aren't I? We should fight together. And it's just such a good moment of growth for her.
Well, and we got Frankie and Robin, we got another Frobin shipping moment, because Spandam pulls out Fungfried, the sword, and he's like, crush Robin. Because she, seeing the Buster Call, has gone back into kind of like a shock, sort of like not moving, not really responding to the world around her situation. So he's going to attack Robin so badly that I don't think he meant to kill her, but I think he meant to injure her so badly that they could easily, drag her with them. And Frankie jumps in the way and he catches Fungfried, and he puts like his cannon arm against Fungfried's eyes like, you want to turn back into an elephant right now. And she realizes, like, through Frankie being like, I'm gonna stand here, I'm gonna fight till the Straw Hats, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, like literally drawn a light that slowly expands and takes up the entire screen. Hats. And she's back to fighting, and it's just like, oh, that's so good. And we got to crush Spandam underneath the weight of an elephant. I cannot stress that enough. That made me so happy.
He was hoisted by his own elephant petard.
He fell upon his elephant sword.
Oh, man. No, so I did like these episodes a lot. I think there was a lot of really good stuff. He even worked in some world building, and it was all good.
I do like it. So I'm of two minds about Polly and all of them possibly being killed. I think it's interesting because Robin was traumatized by the Buster Call in the past, but how many people have honestly ever seen a Buster Call outside of the Marines? Probably none of them, because the whole point is that everyone should dies. So what they've done now is they've given the Straw Hats the capacity to witness the Buster Call and all of the damage it does and the lives that it costs without actually dying themselves. So now in the future, I don't know how likely it is that the Marines will threaten a Buster Call or mention it again, but the Straw Hats are aware of the danger of the world government and the Marines, and they know how far the name of justice will be carried. We had a vice admiral who was like, all right, we need to fire on that ship because Luffy's on there, Pirate Straw Hat Luffy. And one of his subordinates is like, are you sure? There's lots of Marine lives. And the vice admiral just shoots him, just like kills him. Yeah. And so we already knew that the Marines were bad people from a lot of other examples previously, but oh my god, this cements it to the point where I don't think they could do anything that would make me value them less than this particular set of episodes.
There was a quote I really liked that we didn't write down in our notes, but Nami is horrified when it's announced that the Frankie family has been killed, and she says something like, "How can they kill people so easily?" And Robin says, "You can't see lives on a map."
Yes.
So to the Marines, all they see is an island, and it doesn't matter how many people actually die because they are just removing something from a map.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really good way of, or a really powerful way of showing how in war you sometimes get removed from the actual human cost of things, and it just comes down to numbers and data.
Yeah, I wrote down a quote, and I used the Wikipedia to figure out the character name because I don't know many of the Vice Admirals. But apparently Vice Admiral Doberman, a lot of the Vice Admirals are named after dogs. That's interesting. But anyways, he said, "Justice isn't always pretty. It isn't always kind." So that's interesting because, you know, I think in the purest sense of what justice is, it would mean that the fewest people get hurt and only people who are bad in some way get hurt. But apparently that's not how the world operates according to the worldview of the Marines in this series. But, I mean, a lot of people have wondered if maybe the Marines are going to change. The very first character we met in the series, even before Luffy, was Kobe. And what does he say when he sees the corruption of Axe Hand Morgan? He goes, "Oh, I want to be a better Marine like the Marines should be." So I think that was Oda planting the seeds that there is bad stuff going on in the Marines, but maybe one day in the future they'll be changed for the better.
I think we have two kinds of Marines here. We have Marines who want to uphold the world government and what it stands for, and we have Marines who want to serve and protect people. Mm-hmm. And Kobe falls very squarely into that camp, and that's the kind of Marine that he was raised to believe in, and that's the kind that he wants to be. And so he has to overcome all of these other Marines who are just upholding the world government no matter how many people it hurts.
Yeah, it was in the Romance Dawn one-shots that Oda wrote. There were actually two different factions of pirates explicitly labeled as the Morganites and the Peacemain pirates, and they were explicitly pirates that yearned for adventure and pirates that wanted to loot and plunder and hurt people. I've seen a lot of people be like, "Of course the characters in One Piece are flawed, they're pirates," but like, obviously those people haven't read and seen that there are two distinct groups. And while we don't have those labels as strictly in this version, and there's some pirate crews that are kind of like in this gray area, I think the Marines are also, like you just said, there's very two distinct camps. And I think that in the end, you get a quadrant map, right? Where you want the Marines that want peace and the pirates that want adventure to essentially take over the other two groups because, you know, nasty pillaging pirates and evil corrupt Marines are no good, and that doesn't create a world that people want to live in.
Absolutely. So with the Lucci fight finally over, what are your thoughts about the fight overall, and were you satisfied by the way it ended?
I love this fight. So in my mind, Eneru doesn't count as a villain, and the Skypiea doesn't count as a major arc, even though it clearly is. Like, they had quite a bit of, you know, struggle and fighting and an emotional, you know, through line. But in my mind, only certain battles have the big climactic ending. Some of them are kind of forgettable, in a sense. So I really, really liked how hard Luffy had to fight in order to keep up with Lucci, and how many times you saw him innovating throughout the battle, and how many times he tried a new thing only for Lucci to find some way to circumvent it. And so I love how much of a struggle it was for Luffy to win this. I love the fact that he did fall, and he might not have been able to get back up if not for Usopp's, you know, cheering and his words and whatever. I appreciate that Luffy didn't go gear second until Frankie was in danger and until it meant saving Robin. And so, yes, I love the Luffy-Lucci fight. I think that sometimes it can feel like it's dragging a little bit because it's interspersed with all of the other stuff going on with the other Straw Hats and Kokoro and Robin and Frankie and stuff. But overall, it is an excellent fight with an amazing finale. Like, the flashbacks of all the different people who have been trying to tell Luffy, oh, Robin's dangerous, you shouldn't stay. And in the end, his answer was, no, screw you, I'm just gonna punch you like 50,000 times.
Yeah, he's not just punching Luffy, or Lucci, he's punching all of those people.
Exactly.
I really like the climactic Usopp scene.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, so the battle as a whole took a long time, and I think it's important to show the protagonist struggling, because that's one of the things One Piece does really well, is its power scaling. You don't always feel like, okay, well, the protagonist is just going to punch harder, and then they're going to beat the bad guy.
Luffy ate a very tasty steak, and now he punches twice as hard.
At the same time, it felt like he fell down, and then Usopp said, get up, you friggin' baby. And Luffy got up, and he was like, I'm not gonna be a baby anymore. And then he used Jet Gatling to finish Lucci, but why did that work? Was it just because Lucci was already worn out from the rest of the fighting?
I think that it comes down to this idea that in One Piece, your power is related to your heart and your emotional state. Because you'll notice that at one point, Luffy, kind of fell over, or after Gear 3rd activated, he didn't use Gear 2nd for a little bit. And then when he heard everyone on the Bridge of Hesitation being like, we're alive, we escaped, he smiled, and I believe it was at that point that he activated Gear 2nd. And that's kind of like what happened back on Water 7 when Luffy got easily one-shot by Lucci, but then when Nami revealed the truth about Robin, he was strong enough to push the buildings apart. So I think that, in a sense, Luffy did actually go up a little bit in strength after Usopp gave that speech. But I also think that, yeah, Lucci was hurt, because, we saw him even, for a second, stumble because his leg hurt from the Gear 3rd fist. And so, it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B, but it definitely, I think, the words helped Luffy punch harder.
Do you want to read the Usopp speech?
Oh, man. So I think I cut out some of the words, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I kept it all, because this is a long quote, but... Luffy, what the hell are you doing? Get up! Stop lying around, talking and bleeding like you're about to die. That's not the Luffy I know at all. Even though it's filled with smoke, we can still see the sky. We can still see the ocean. This place isn't hell. I can't believe you'd let it end like this, so stop acting like you're about to die, you stupid bastard. What's wrong with you? Why are you trying to make us worry? Get up and fight!
Yes, and then he even looks at Lucci and he's like, if Luffy's gonna be pathetic, I'll fight you. I'm the great Captain Usopp.
I think that came before this quote, but yeah, he was provoking Lucci with everything he had. He was like, hey, boss cat, why don't you come fight me? I have 8,000 followers. Everywhere I go, towns crumble to destruction.
And Luffy's laying on the ground muttering like, Usopp, why are you so stupid? He's gonna kill you. And so he eventually gets up. But the thing that was really important to me about this quote is that it didn't come from Sogeking, it came from Usopp. He literally dropped the mask because the power of his emotions were so strong that they broke through that barrier he'd put between himself and his friend.
Uh-huh.
We talk a lot about Usopp being the heart of the crew. I can't imagine this speech coming from anybody else. If it came from, say, Zoro, it would be less about the emotion of it, the I'm your friend and I don't want you to die, and it would be more, why are you so weak? My captain should be a strong person.
Yeah, he would come across as a little, to go back to ToQger, it's a little bit like Hikari, where he's like, I know I sound cold and heartless sometimes when I say things, and Zoro would definitely come across that way. I could see Sanji if he tried to give a quote. I think Sanji could do a pretty good job, but I could also see him being like, you've got to protect Nami Swan! And it's just like, no, that's not the point right now. The point is protecting everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Could you see Chopper doing it, or would he be crying too hard, do you think?
I don't think Chopper could give this speech. I don't think he and Luffy have that same emotional connection as Luffy and Usopp. Luffy and Usopp are best friends.
They are, and they're the same age, and we've gone over this.
Yeah, or they were before Usopp left the crew, and he makes it very clear, I'm just here to save Robin. I have no interest in you, you asshole.
Yeah, Zoro even kind of calls him out for it a little bit for a second. Yeah.
Aren't you being too harsh? As Zoro's holding off 15 Marines at once.
I think that Zoro could give a speech that would motivate him to get back up, but it would be more hard-edged, and it would be more like, you're a fighter, and it would be more about that kind of masculinity type of thing. But I think Nami could give a pretty good speech because she is You know, we sometimes talk about the gender differences in One Piece and how women are written differently than men and that sort of thing. And whether you agree with that or not, I think that Nami does occasionally do a better job of blending logic and emotion, the what is it, the pathos and the ethos, to the point where I think that she would be able to speak to Luffy's heart, and they do have quite a connection. You know, there's a lot of people that ship Luffy and Nami. I'm not one of them, but I do understand that their friendship, their relationship feels stronger than Luffy and Sanji or Luffy and Chopper. So I think she could give a pretty good speech, but oh man, Usopp has that. He's the bard. He elevates things. You know, he tells lies and he finds ways of weaving the mythical with the factual. And I think that that's part of how he was able to get to Luffy was, I mean, who else would say we're not in hell? That's an Usopp thing right there, to be like, get up, you're not dead, you idiot.
Yes, no, that was beautiful. Nami gives off a lot of big mom energy.
Okay.
So Nami yelling at you to get up and stop screwing around would be like your mom yelling at you to stop reading that book you found on the floor when you were supposed to be cleaning your room and go back to cleaning your room. This has never happened to me in real life. But Usopp yelling at you is like your friend. And Usopp even is putting himself in danger because he thinks Luffy has failed so bad. And I think to Luffy, that is unacceptable.
Yep. 100%.
I agree with what you said about the hell thing. I can't see Nami ever threatening the bad guy because Luffy has failed. Like, she's not capable of lying to herself enough to get the courage to do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. I also, just really quick shout out to the one specific line where Usopp goes, "Are you a scaredy cat?" And it shows Lucci's eyes like twitch, like, the hell did you just say about me?
It makes me wonder, like, you know, the old thing about how different people hear specific jokes over and over. So, like, my name is Kat, and in middle school I got the whole, oh, do you drink milk out of a saucer? Do you chase mice? I got that over and over. So if someone said that to me as an adult and I was like Lucci, I would probably be like, oh, I get to kill you now. Because that's the world that they live in.
Are you making fun of my devil fruit?
Yeah. So Lucci, has he heard this bit so many times from CP9 members growing up that he's just like, all right, we're not doing this. I don't know you, but I've heard that joke too many times.
I do appreciate that take, but what it is to me is Lucci is a man with very strong principles. You know, I will chase Robin to the ends of the earth to eliminate her. So I think what it is by being called a scaredy cat, Usopp is spitting on Lucci's ideals and what it means to be a CP9 member. Like, oh, you're afraid as an agent of the... And so I think that's why it was such a, button press. Because you could even see Lucci was, like, not very listening to Usopp when he's like, I'll fight you, I have 8,000 followers. Lucci's like, yeah, whatever. And then he's like, your government is shit. What did you say?
Exactly. Usopp's line about it not being hell, is that foreshadowing? Do you think we're gonna get to go to literal hell?
You know, I don't know, because on one hand, devil fruit powers seem mythical, right? They turn your body into rubber, you can turn into animals, you can turn your body into fire, but at the same time, we later learned that, like, well, when you eat a fruit, the power kind of transfers to you, and there can only be one in the world, so it's a lot... The rules are a lot harder of science fiction than you would originally think, right? Nami seems like a witch, but she's just manipulating the atmosphere. So I don't think One Piece is the sort of show to have a literal hell, but at the same time, that would be kind of cool to see. And you could have a pirate crew that was themed after hell. You know, they could be like the 9 commanders and each one of them is a different level of hell or something like that.
Well, and given that they have gone to somewhere kind of like heaven, they went to the sky, and they fought God in the sky, I could see them going somewhere kind of like hell, like a place that's all on fire, and fighting the devil.
Sure. I could see that too, but I just don't think that it would be like the literal hell.
No.
But I did have this random thought that popped in my head. The fine folks at Piece Together, they open most of their episodes up with a, conversational thing that's not really directly related to the episodes. So I'm just going to kind of steal that format for a second. If you had to pick someone other than Luffy, because he's the main character, if you had to pick someone other than Luffy from the Straw Hats to venture down into literal hell to save someone's soul, just like the Greek myth of Orpheus, thank you, who would you pick? Who do you think would be most likely to be able to do that?
Usopp.
Okay.
I think that if your soul is stuck in hell, there's probably a level of despair there. Like, you're not necessarily actively trying to escape. And I think Usopp is the best at forming those emotional connections and the best at being like, I came all the way down here into hell. We're leaving.
I could also see a fairly serious take on Sanji being him saving one of either Robin or Nami. I don't know if I would necessarily believe him going down to save, say, Zoro. Like, I could see that in, like, an AU. Some people ship him and Zoro, and in that way, if you slightly tweak their personalities, it would work. But, no, Sanji would only be able to do it for the women. He also kind of... I feel he has the most, like, self-sacrifice of the members of the crew, other than maybe Usopp. And so I could see him being like, I'll take their place in hell so that they can go back up to the living world or whatever.
Mm-hmm, yeah, he's always the first to throw himself in the ocean. He's always I could see that for sure. Zoro, I think, would only do it for Luffy.
Okay.
And I would
or Chopper, his baby
Chopper.
brother.
You're right. And he would go to hell and sword fight the devil. It would be sick as heck.
And the devil would have 666 swords. He would be the demon-style sword slasher guy.
Imagine Zoro encountering the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones. And
oh my gosh.
There's a lot of swords in that chair.
I'm going to have to test each one to figure out which one is the best. But let's use that to segue into our boy Zoro. As you mentioned, he was fighting a person whose name I don't think was given in the episode. I could probably look it up on the wiki, but he ate the rust fruit. Zoro did not know this, and as we know in One Piece, it's kind of like stand powers or, what's it called? Nen. If you don't know what your opponent is capable of, you could be put in a disadvantageous situation. So he tries to slash this guy, and his sword immediately rusts. The sword was Yubashiri, which, if I recall correctly, was one of the ones that he bought back in Logtown.
It's not his cursed blade, and it's not the blade that his childhood friend gave him.
Yeah, he did not get it from Kuina. So yeah, I think it was the cheap sword that he bought before he saw the cursed blade and whatever. And so... We've seen Zoro without his swords before, and it was implied that he wasn't fighting at full strength because he didn't have 3, so what's he going to do? Is he just going to buy another one? Do you think?
So, I think that we've had the Zoro buys swords scene.
Okay.
I would be interested to further explore the idea of cursed swords. Like, maybe he comes across somebody who fights with a cursed sword, and he's like, I need to have that blade.
Okay.
That would be really interesting. Or some other way of him obtaining another sword. Because I think, like, him just going to a store and buying another one isn't necessarily as interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what the next island is going to be like. Maybe he tries to buy one on Water 7, because that's a big, town. But, they don't always go to islands that have populations of people or that might have swords. So it's really interesting to see where it might go. This also is an opportunity to give Zoro a chance to upgrade himself if he were to get like an especially strong sword or a cursed sword or something like that. Or maybe he'll just learn how to fight with 2 swords and like overcome that gap through his own skill rather than trying to immediately replace the third one.
Yeah, I've always wondered, maybe you have an answer to this question, maybe it's just something that needs to continually be floating out there. But when Zoro was a child, he started fighting with multiple swords because he was like, well, if I can't beat you with 1 sword, maybe I can beat you with 2 swords. So... to be the world's best swordsman, does he have to defeat somebody else with just a single sword?
No, he just has to defeat someone else with swords, I think.
Okay.
Because the best swordsman in the world will have the best technique and be the strongest and be unbeatable. But it is interesting that he developed this style, which some might consider cheating. He's using more swords than other people, but at the same time, is Hachi cheating because he's a fisherman? I mean, yeah, kind of, because he has the supernatural strength of a fisherman, but, yeah, I don't know.
Here's one of those random questions, thought-provoker. Zoro with his 3-sword style versus Drizzt Do'Urden with his 2 scimitars.
Okay.
Who would win?
Well, one of them can create literal twisters from nothing and can spawn extra heads and extra arms.
One of them has an invincible panther he can summon anytime he wants.
Okay, so are we talking about in a sword fight, or are we talking about they're just fighting each other?
We're talking about in a sword fight, but Drist will summon his panther. That's just what he does.
Even if he doesn't summon his panther, sometimes the panther will just show up randomly. So I think Zoro would have to defeat the panther, but I think that, like, listen, I like Drist, and I like his story arc and whatnot, but I just don't think that he's written to be the same badass as Zoro. Zoro is the invincible swordsman for the most part, whereas Drist is the really good swordsman, you know?
No, I think you're right. It cracked me up to imagine them fighting. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to talk about this more.
Zoro just walks into the Underdark or whatever it's called. He's like, I will take down all 10 of the leading houses, and I will slay Udith? What's the snake lady's name, or spider lady's name?
Lolth,
right. I will fight Lolth myself and claim one of her spider legs as my next sword.
Oh my god, that would be so cool. Or like he walks down there, I heard you had a spider goddess. Does she fight with 10 swords? Stabby stab.
Okay, I absolutely love this crossover, and someone please draw fan art of this.
You have a really interesting note here about the different fights that we saw. There was the man with the berry fruit,
who made the great pun, the wonderful pun. It's very fun to fight you.
I hated that. I hated it both times I heard it because we had to rewatch that episode twice. But Frankie couldn't beat him, and Zoro saved him. Usopp couldn't beat the guys that were coming at him, and Zoro
who were flying in the air, by the way. Or no, it was just he had his back turned. That's right.
Yeah, okay. They were like jumping at him. But Zoro saved him, and then Zoro couldn't beat the rust guy, but was saved by Usopp.
Yes. So I love that the teamwork of the Straw Hats is on display in these episodes, especially on the Bridge of Hesitation. Zoro is protecting Usopp while Usopp delivers the speech. Sanji has disappeared, and we don't know quite what he's up to, but I assume that will in some way help the crew. So he's not there fighting, but he's doing something else behind the scenes.
Bless our behind the scenes boy.
And then we also have Robin shows up and helps Nami when it looks like Nami's going to get attacked. And so, yeah, work together, guys, because that's what makes the Straw Hats more powerful and more interesting than Enru's priests, than Baroque works, than CP9. Like the bad guys almost always are, we're going to split up and do our own thing, but the Straw Hats also kind of split up, but will support each other in ways that the bad guys do not.
I think the best part of watching an ensemble cast show is watching them work together. I don't really care about individual one-on-one fights so much. I like seeing how these people support one another and seeing the combo attacks they can come up with.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's much more interesting than, he's over there punching that guy, and I'm over here kicking this guy.
100%. Yeah, I love the Sanji launching Zoro during the Groggy Ring. I love Luffy and Zoro doing the 300-pound cannon when they're on the sea train. I love the way that they were able to get Vivi up to the top of the clock tower by hitting Usopp in the crotch and then having Zoro jump off of him and then Chopper jump off of the sword.
Oh, that was cool. I almost forgot about that. I love doing this podcast because it reminds me of all of the cool moments from One Piece that you forget when you're 900 episodes in. But you mentioned Sanji was not a part of this teamwork stuff. He had kind of disappeared. Mm-hmm. Where do you think he went?
See, this is one of those times when it would be nice to have someone who hadn't seen the next episodes, because I clearly remember what Sanji is up to.
I don't.
So Sanji disappeared, and someone comments, like, I think it's Zoro is like, or no, Usopp's like, where'd Sanji go? And Zoro, let it be known that Zoro said, damn it, the one time that I wish Sanji were here. So, confirmed. But anyway.
He does think Sanji is useful sometimes.
But the next time that we see him, you see people who are like, we're the guards of the Enies lobby. We're supposed to protect it. And they're like, the buster call's coming, dude. Just get out. Just leave. We're abandoning post. And he leaves, and the door opens, and Sanji's there looking all cool, being a secret agent spy guy, lighting a cigarette, and there's, like a lever and a transponder snail, and that's all that we have to go off of. So, Kathryn, since you don't clearly remember what happens, do you have any idea?
So the lever has to control like a bridge or something, but the Bridge of Hesitation was already destroyed, so...
Well, they're on the Bridge of Hesitation.
Oh, they're on it. Sorry, I thought they had destroyed it. So maybe it does destroy the Bridge of Hesitation. Maybe it blows it up or unfolds it.
Okay, yeah, maybe he separates all of the captains from, the Straw Hats or whatever.
Maybe the lever blows up the rest of Eddie's lobby that the Buster Call hasn't already.
Maybe there's a kraken that lives under the water, so he pulls the lever and unleashes the beast, and it just unleashes hell upon all of the battleships.
That's what Usopp was hearing, was the kraken heard the battle above and has a taste for blood and it wants to come out.
Oh my gosh, yes. So, without giving away... Well, okay, this is going to give it away, but they actually very cleverly foreshadowed this. Do you remember what happened when the Gates of Justice fully opened?
There was like a weird light, but I don't remember.
There was a current, because there's the giant hole underneath Annie's lobby, so the water would normally go underneath it, and the gates were closed and then suddenly opened, which got rid of the tide pools because the water was no longer being redirected. So...
Oh, so maybe the lever closes the door and it makes the tide pools again and messes up their ships.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. So it is interesting that Oda gave us the answers to what was going to happen, but it happened so long ago, and it was one time that they mentioned that stupid gate. So... I don't know, man. Sanji's so cool. He's so smart, you know? Like, Zoro wouldn't think of that. Zoro would just be like, I'll just cut through all the battleships. And, like, that's a valid strategy if you have the strength to do so. But Sanji's my boy.
Sanji is a really tough character for me because I think when Oda takes him seriously, he's really interesting. But he suffers from the rarity problem where he's only a good and interesting character when it's directly about him. But when he's played off as a joke, I don't like the joke. I don't like him pouting because Granny Kokoro wasn't a hot mermaid. It was funny the first time I saw it. It wasn't funny on the rewatch. It was like, dude, don't be a dick.
Yeah. And that's just really quickly, the rarity problem is a thesis that I wrote, a theorem that I have, that the character Rarity from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, she is supposed to represent the element of generosity. And in episodes that are about her, because usually an episode will focus on one or two ponies, she's very generous, and she will, give someone the shirt off of her back or off her mane or whatever. And
horses have backs, Joel.
I guess they do, but they don't really wear shirts, so my point is, she is very generous and she's very kind to other people, but then in episodes that are about, say, like Pinkie Pie or something, she'll be in the background and be like, these gems are mine! And it's like, that's not very generous. And like, I get it, it's for the sake of a joke, but Sanji is supposed to be kind and kind of smart, but sometimes he's the biggest idiot and sometimes he's very unkind. And so I will always say this, Sanji is my favorite, asterisk, when he's written well. So I even appreciate the joke where he saw Robin and he was trying to give her a hug and then Nami and he just like rammed himself into the mast. Like, that's a fairly harmless joke. Like, of course he's happy to see Robin again, but some of the other jokes don't land for me.
I think what I would really like to see with Sanji, since his thing is like loving women and being kind, those are his like defining character traits. Mm-hmm. I would love to see one of the other crew members have been kind of an ass about Granny Kokoro being kind of a weird looking mermaid instead of a hot mermaid, and Sanji being like, no, all women are beautiful and valid.
Yeah.
Like have him be really kind to a really ugly or monstrous lady that everybody else is really mean to. I think that would be a better use of his I really like women bit than I really like sexy women and screw all the other women.
Yeah, and then we haven't really seen him feeding people lately. And I mean, I know you can't use that plot element too many times because, like, why are there so many hungry people? Like, what is wrong with all of the enemies? But I'd love to see that come back as well for him. I feel like a lot of characters when they're introduced in a series, and this is not just One Piece, but they'll be like really cool for that first season or that first episode, and then later it's like, well, we already had an arc with them, so they're just kind of in the background. Damn it!
Yeah, not to spoil anything too much for future arcs, but I really feel like Frankie was an intimidating badass when he showed up. He caught an elephant. He caught an elephant in his bare hands and yelled at it, and it turned back into an elephant from a sword. But I feel like that goes away. I feel like he's more of a clown in later episodes, and he loses more quickly.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that that's also part of the escalation of stakes. Like, the enemies are getting so much stronger that, like, yeah, of course Zoro can cut through a shield made of stone or iron or something like that. But then as you get further into the Grand Line and people start to have sword or shields that are made out of like steel or adamantium or diamond or dragon scale or whatever, you then get into the situation where only Zoro can cut through it only when he's like 100% concentrated, and other characters are just going to be completely ineffective. They're going to be like, poof, oh, nope, it didn't work. That was a weak punch, by the way. I don't know. It could also be like Usopp shooting, one of his bullets, and it just kind of like, it doesn't explode. It's like a dud. It's just like, pink.
Honestly, I think that should be our new sensor sound.
Absolutely. And, one last quick thing. Lucci was 13 when he massacred all of those soldiers. And I mean, you already covered that he was young, but like, he already had all of the 6 powers figured out at that age. And like, he was already a kind of like a dog to the government. What kind of a childhood did that man have?
So I know this, but I can't remember it being explicitly laid out in the anime. Lucci was raised like from birth to be a CP9 guy,
yes,
right?
I believe it's been confirmed by Oda that most of the CP9 members were taken in as children and just like, Winter Soldier style brainwashed by the government to be, perfect loyal subjects.
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of explains why he is as effed up as he is.
Yeah, I guess so, but like, why is he more effed up than some of the other members? And why was he so, I don't know, I think that maybe he's another character where we could get a little bit more backstory for him to flesh out why he is the way that he is, but at the same time, there are people in real life who are just kind of sociopaths for more or less no reason, they were born that way, and then like some traumatic, like one incident pushed them over the edge, just one bad day, as the Joker would say, but also he can shoot invisible laser beams that hit, 10 times as hard as an impact dial, so whatever the hell is up with that.
Is he coming back? Is he going to be like twice the threat in 300 episodes, do you think?
Yeah, he'll be able to shoot the side iron Rokugan, or the six king pistol from both of his hands at the same time.
That's amazing. Slight spoilers for Film Gold. If you haven't seen it, Joel and I went to see Film Gold in theaters, and it was amazing, and we loved it, but Lucci showed up in that movie, and he didn't fight any of the main characters. He fought someone else off in the corner, and Joel leans over and he goes, "This is bullshit. They just brought him back for fan service. The fans just wanted to see him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what it is. He's going to play an important part, not to get too spoiler heavy, but he's not gone. None of the enemies in One Piece ever actually die, but what's he up to? Who knows? Emeru flew up to the goddamn moon.
Can all the villains just go to the moon like crocodiles?
Oh my god, final arc is on the moon, and it's Luffy versus all of his past enemies.
If Soul Eater got to go to the moon, I think One Piece can go to the moon.
All right, and that has been your
doot final thought.
Outro goes here. Next episode, we will be covering just 3 episodes of the anime, 310, 311, and 312, but we'll also be watching Movie 8. That's the one where we go back to Alabasta. So hooray, Vivi will be relevant again.
Crocodile, my boy!
Have a great morning, evening, or afternoon, everyone, whatever the case may be.
Bye!
Rumor has it the Buster Call brought forth 200 captains. That's like 16 packs of smokers.
A pack a day is bad for your health.
Ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.